Hello everyone. Today is my lecture on barriers of communication. So first we'll understand what does a barrier means. What does the barrier of communication defines? Communication barriers implies to the form of hindrance in the flow of communication. That is when one party is not able to get the message conveyed by another party clearly or accurately or intently. Means if first party is trying to communicate uh, some message to second person, and if the second person is not able to understand what first person is saying, so this can be considered as a barrier of communication. So here we'll understand what are the types of barriers can be. It is not exhaustive nature, means there can be more barriers to the communication, but here we'll learn only about the 10 barriers. So first is a physical barrier, second is semantic barrier, third is organizational barrier, fourth is personal barrier, fifth is psychological barrier, sixth is cultural barrier, seventh is attitude barrier, eighth is technology barrier, and ninth is the physiological barrier, 10th is the gender barrier. Here we'll understand each barrier with the example. So first we'll start with the physical barrier. So what does physical barrier means? If there is any disturbance in the connection, for example you're watching a YouTube channel and you're having any connection problem, that is a physical barrier. And similarly when you're watching any video, any lecture, and if there in the background there are so many noise, so it is also a type of physical barrier. Whether when you watch TV, and if it is raining, so automatically the your connection disable, and it says there is a due to the bad weather the connection is not proper, so that is also a physical barrier. Next is a time and distance and environment, any barrier related to the environment, that is also a physical barrier. Next is semantic barrier. Second barrier is a semantic barrier, means any barrier which is related to linguistic barrier. It is also called linguistic barrier, means if anyone is having any issue in the communication related to the language issue, so it comes under the semantic barrier. Next is the organizational barrier. Organizational barrier means it is basically happens with the people in the organization, means director, members, board members, and employees, team leader, like that person. So for example, if in the organization, it is a improper communication, that is also comes under the organizational barrier. Next is unclear hierarchy, means you don't know where if in every organization there is a hierarchy for communicating, but if there is an unclear hierarchy, means if an employee, if an agent is having any issue, so he will convey to the team leader, team leader will convey to the manager, manager will go to the director, director will resolve it, like, means there should be a hierarchy to communicate issues and problems and any information. So next is an unclear policy of the company. If company is having any unclear policy, that is also comes under the organizational barrier. Undefined rule. If there is an undefined rule, means for the particular issue there is not defined any specific rule, that is also comes under the organizational barrier. Next is the complex structure of organization, means the structure of organization is very complex, that it is very difficult to understand, and if it is difficult to understand, so obviously there will be a problem in the communicating. Next is personal barrier. Personal barrier means if any emotions related to your personal, any emotion which is considered personally, that if somebody's behavior, you can say behavior of someone, and attitude attitude and lack of listening, unwillingly to communicate, lack of vocabulary, that all comes under the physical barrier. Next is psychological barrier. Psychological barrier means if any barrier due to any psychological behavior, means what does it means? That if anybody is in stress, or anybody is jealous, anybody is having any jealousy, anybody is possessing any anxiety about anything, so they, due to these factors, due to these psychological behavior, the person does not able to communicate information properly to another, due to which interpersonal communication hamper. That is called a psychological barrier. Next is a cultural barrier. Means cultural barrier means there are so many cultures in culture we have. So if anybody is having any barrier due to the culture, if South Indian people is talking to the North Indian, there is some cultural difference. So due to that culture, if anybody is not able to understand the communication, so that comes under the cultural barrier. Next is attitude barrier. Means if a employee is very motivated and energetic, so his attitude towards the thing is very energetic and motivated, okay, so he will communicate in a different manner. On the other hand, if an employee is not having any if he is very demotivated, or he is having complaints with his job, unhappy with his job, so he will communicate in a different manner, okay. Next is technological barrier. Technological barrier means the technology which is used for the communication should be common, plus it should not be outdated. So if one person is using another technology, another person is using outdated technology, and say, if for example in today's era, if somebody is not having WhatsApp and anybody want to share the file in a WhatsApp, so it is outdated technology, they are not using WhatsApp. So here what you can say is that technology should be appropriate which we are using for the communication, okay. Next is a physiological barrier. Physiological barrier means any barrier connected to your physical state. Means if you have a poor eyesight, if you have a poor memory, if you have a speech disorder, due to which the other person is not able to understand what you're saying, that all falls under the physiological barrier. Next is a gender barrier. So what is a gender barrier? Means there is a huge difference between the communication of man and woman. Means man talks logically, it doesn't mean that woman doesn't talk logically, but they also talk logically, plus emotions are attached to it, okay. So these are some, we'll also consider here how to overcome the barriers. So here we consider as a organization, and we try to overcome the barriers. So for overcoming the barriers, first there should be a employee orientation. Orientation means introducing it is a kind of introduction, introducing to the company, to the institution, like that. And second is a develop good interpersonal relationship. Now what is interpersonal relationship and what is intrapersonal relationship? Means interpersonal relationship means when I am talking to you guys, so there is a two-way communication, two people are involved. If I am giving you the lecture, you people are listening, so two people are involved in the communication. But when we speak to ourselves, for example, in the examination, when I am recalling the answer, that what I have learned, that what is the answer of this, I have read like this. So when I am communicating to myself, that is a intrapersonal communication, okay. So here we have to develop a good interpersonal relationship between employees, okay. Next is active listening. Active listening should be there, which is very important. If you not listen the communication properly, actively, so you will be not able to reply back effectively. Next is use a proper language. Proper language here means, it is not specified here that proper language means a particular language, that is Hindi or English. Here the proper language means that language which is very comfortable for both the party to understand, okay. That can be any language, but the main purpose of the communication is that the transmission and receiver of the receive of the information should be correct. Next is use of proper body language. Sometime what we say is different, and what we act is a different. So try to, like, if there is a face to face communication, try to like have a proper body language and a gesture. Next is use of the latest technology. Here latest technology doesn't mean that a very high technology, but that technology which is comfortable to the both the parties here. And very important is a feedback is very important here, because if A is communicating to B, and if B understand 100, if A is transmitting 100% of the information and B only understand 90%, so there should be a feedback due to in which B can ask about the 10%. Getting means there should be a questioning if there is if he has not got proper or whole information, he can ask the question. And the feedback here is reversible, means if A is saying something which B doesn't understand, so B can ask question. Vice versa, if B is saying something, A can also ask question to B. Okay, I hope it is clear to you guys. If you have any doubt, kindly message me, and thank you so much for watching my video.